Welcome to the Chamber Connection. I'm Todd Thompson, President and CEO of the Greater Pensacola Chamber of Commerce. And we are going to be focusing today on the upcoming legislative session. Session begins tomorrow in Tallahassee. They'll be there for 60 days working on a myriad of subjects that'll impact the business community. The only two things that they have to do are the budget, and this year they have to do redistricting. So we will see some different district lines come out, and we'll take a look at those once session is complete. But we recently had our legislative luncheon, and I know Andrew has focused on some of the clips from that. He was very gracious to host that luncheon. But I wanted to pull some clips as well, and just to let you know what our local delegation is pushing for this session in representing Northwest Florida, and some of the things that we'll be pushing as a chamber and the business community to get done in Tallahassee. So we had at the luncheon Representative Michelle Salzman, Representative Alex Andrade, and in the place of Senator Doug Broxson, we had his chief aide, Janice Gilley, who was able to provide details about his key bills. So we'll get right into it, and we'll start with Representative Michelle Salzman talking about some of her key bills coming up this session.
There's a statewide advisory council. It could use some updating, some tweaking the legislation to really put some more teeth and meaning into that legislation so that folks with disabilities can access the technology resources a little bit better. And y'all, I want to hear a round of applause bigger than anything because it's taken 2 bill slots for this, but I'm running the Blue Angels motorcycle license plate bill. Go ahead. Thank you, Dave. I sure love my Dave. And so basically, all the money from that will do the same thing that the license plate bill is going to be doing that just passed recently. But as you know, you can't put a dollar figure on STEM and the importance of our Naval Aviation Museum and all things that the Navy brings to Pensacola. So I am absolutely honored to carry that bill. It's already passed. Both the fee bill, yes, I said a fee bill passed, both the fee bill and the actual license plate bill passed the first committee. It only has one more to go. Our great senator is running the companion bill, so I don't think we'll have any trouble there. I'm running an Alzheimer's awareness bill. Just trying to fix some things, bring some more awareness to how you identify the onset of Alzheimer's and dementia. I'm also with the CFO, with our great Jimmy Petronas, running the fire cancer bill. It's a bill that will extend the cancer benefits to the fire inspectors. So oftentimes you'll have fire inspectors, obviously they go in and inspect the fire. Recently we updated legislation to provide the firefighters with cancer coverage, but we left them out, we left the investigators out. So it's just a quick little fixed bill. I don't foresee that being any issue. I also have a criminal sentencing bill. I carried it last year, I'm carrying it this year. I hope that we get more movement. We've been working really hard on that. We all know that a lot of folks that get captured into the jail are really just not folks that need to be in jail. They're really folks that just didn't make some right decisions. Maybe they were in a bad place mentally. Maybe they got on drugs. And this bill just kind of helps keep people out of jail. So once you get out, you're on probation. And it's so easy to get back in jail when you're on probation. I mean, if I got arrested for all the minor things that some of those people get put back in jail for, well, I wouldn't be your state representative, that's for sure. So we're hoping that gets some more movement. But criminal justice reform is certainly something really important to the mental health care and to the whole health of the community.
So one of the key things that Representative Salzman has been working on here locally, and she's going to continue this push in Tallahassee, is her mental health task force. And she's held a number of meetings here with leaders from throughout the community, from government, nonprofit, business, healthcare, bringing all those folks together to really put a focus on mental health. We've seen a lot of issues with mental health due to COVID, and she has made this a priority of hers. So in this next segment, she talks about her work with the mental health task force and the things that she'll be doing in Tallahassee with that.
The next one is qualification updates for access to care and diagnosis in autism and adolescents with autism. And I haven't filed that yet. It's in drafting. I've been working closely with ACA, the Deputy Secretary over Medicaid, and Tom Wallace and Jules Carey are trying to make sure that we get that language right. We might not actually even need the legislation. That happened last year. I had a bill I thought for sure I was going to run. We spent like 4 months in research and then found out we can change it other ways. We'd worked very closely with the agency, and they had decided that they would change it internally. So we'll see about that. But basically, if you haven't noticed, I have a big mental health circle there going around, and I created the mental health task force here in Pensacola with some incredible community leaders. The conversation started with the CEOs, Jen Grove, Jules Carrier, a couple others, and I said, well, would y'all be willing to sit down and have a conversation about, what we can do to fix the access issue to mental health care? And they said, sure, that's fine, and I thought that I was like strong-arming them because, I actually serve on the Healthcare Appropriations Committee, but it turns out they really wanted it. It went from 10 people to 75, and we've got partnerships from all across the state. The governor's office is engaged, as well as all of the major agencies, Department of Health, Department of Juvenile Justice, every department. And if you go to mentalhealthtaskforce.org, you can see all of the people that are on that task force, and it's just incredible. We have the chief of police, the mayor, the safety director, of course the chamber. Todd would not be there. All of the hospital CEOs. You've got ACAs engaged, Department of Health, Department of Children and Families, Matt Gates' office. You name Department of Veterans Affairs, the Navy base. Captain K is there. Everybody you can think of. Even we have judges. We have the Century Prison. The idea is just to collectively come together and have a conversation about what it's like to really address the stigma behind mental health.
Next, we'll hear from State Representative Alex Andrade. And in his initial comments, Representative Andrade talks about what's coming up with the budget. And like I mentioned earlier, the budget is one of the two things that they will constitutionally have to accomplish this session. And we're actually flush on the state level with a lot of money right now, so that's a good thing. So let's hear from Representative Andrade with his perspective on the budget.
This coming budget season, the governor recently released his proposed budget. I think a lot of folks think when the governor announces his budget, that's going to be the budget. But procedurally, what that means is that's what the governor hopes we fund. It is still contrary to what some might think. We still have 3 separate entities in American governance. We have the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. All 3 are equal in authority, but we have different roles. It is absolutely the legislature's job still to pass laws and to pass a balanced budget, at least here in the state of Florida. So the governor did release his proposed budget, and good news for the folks at the chamber who created your policy statement. All 3 tax holidays that the chamber would very much like to keep into the budget are being requested to stay in, including the recently created 7-day Freedom Week sales tax holiday. So I'm looking forward to continuing to work on that. That was the first step in that process to make y'all's objective a reality. So it's a good sign that the governor has included that in his proposed budget as well. Some of the biggest highlights are the 3rd year in a row, Andrew, of a $500 million proposal for increases for teacher pay, in addition to the current salaries of teachers. So if this gets passed, this will be $1.5 billion in the past 3 years that the state of Florida is committed to raising teacher pay. So I think that's a very strong signal to send, especially when we're competing for talent with other states. I can tell you right now, if you talk to Tim Smith, he's going to Auburn, their teaching college, and trying to get people who are about to graduate to come to be employed by Escambia County to come teach, and he has people from Texas offering $10,000 signing bonuses. This is the nature of our kind of employment market right now in every single industry, and government has to compete for employees the same way every other industry does. I see Mark Faulkner nodding his head a little bit. You guys have some staffing issues too? Yeah, we'll work on it. But no, personally, I always run a transportation bill. Transportation is my passion. I'll be running a bill on bail reform. Hopefully, helping some folks in town who, I think it's a tragedy if someone can't afford a $250, cash bond to get out of jail to go back to their families while they're awaiting, resolving their potential criminal case.
So we get a good perspective there on the budget and some of the things that we're supporting as chamber in terms of sales tax holidays. Those are important to our business community. But there are opportunities for funding some issues that we have here in Northwest Florida, and very optimistic that our delegation will be able to deliver on those. Now we'll hear from Janice Gilley. She's the chief aide to Senator Doug Broxson. And Senator Broxson is serving now as the appropriations chair for education in the Senate. So Janice discusses the senator's role in education appropriations and some key education bills that the senator will be pushing during this legislative session.
As the budget chair for education, he oversees about a $34 to $35 billion budget, which is pretty large in itself. And so part of that would be all the things that you would expect to be in education. You have universities, colleges, you have the early learning and things like that. And then you also have the situation that Representative Andrade mentioned is the governor would like to go to $47,500 as a starting salary for teachers. And so they have been they've had a major commitment to trying to raise those salaries for first-year teachers. So, you know, as he said, it's a governor's recommendation, but the senator will be in a position to try and make that happen. One of the big issues that I think you'll see this year in the K-12 arena will be a situation where they want to create a charter commission to review charter schools to have more competition in with the public school system. Previously, or as it's currently done, the school boards actually are the ones that have to approve charter schools. So I think that'll be one of those big education issues that you'll see this year. One of the other things that happened, as you may be aware of, and those of you that have children, they did do away with the Florida student assessment testing. So now they're going to have to come up with a new way to do assessment. And one of the things that they're looking at is they would do real-time monitoring throughout the year, progress monitoring. So instead of everybody being upset once a year, they may get to be upset more than once a year. But I do expect that to be a pretty robust discussion. One of the things that the senator is very personally passionate about, and you'll probably hear more about this, is the reading progress that we have with our students. It is a situation where anywhere from 30 to 40%, given the community that you're in, the students do not read at grade level. And once you get to fourth grade, if you've not progressed in your reading by the third grade, there is an opportunity for you to be a dropout. It's almost 4 times more than a regular student. 9 out of 10 of those dropouts are not eligible for 90% of the jobs that you have because they don't have a high school education. And so we know what happens as a society when we don't have folks that are able to compete. So one of the things that the senator's working on is actually a 0 to 5. So we're working with the Studer Community Institute with those folks in the brain bag to make sure that we make that potentially a statewide program. At the hospital or, you know, somewhere with early learning, Head Start, make sure that those folks have access to that tool. And then the other thing is we're looking very strongly at making sure that our assessments are done in such a way that a student does not leave the third grade without having that skill. It may be tough on the family and that student, but if they don't have it, we already know what their prognosis is for successful life from then on out. So, and there's a saying, you learn to read to third grade, and from fourth grade on, you read to learn, and our curriculums are still like that. So we thank the Chamber for being very supportive of that particular initiative.
And one of the key issues that Janice discussed there was teacher salaries and what the legislature and Governor DeSantis has done to help push up the starting salaries for teachers, because it's been a major issue in bringing new teachers into the system. But something that was brought up and Representative Andrade addressed was what's called compression, which is, okay, you're raising the starting salary for the new teachers. What about teachers who've been in the system for a while and their salaries aren't, you know, where they need to be compared to these new salaries? So that question was asked, and Representative Andrade provided his response.
Got a follow-up question here on the teacher salary one that I think might be worth clarifying. Raising the base pay for starting teachers is great. Mm-hmm. What's being done to deal with the compression then caused to the middle or more experienced teachers? Is the governor's budget, does it take account of the possibility of pay raises for more experienced, more tenured teachers?
I'll start by saying yes. So out of the $500 million being proposed, actually, I think this year it might be up to $600 million. Generally, 20 to 30% of that is allocated towards increasing veteran teacher pay and accommodation of starting teacher pay. Mm-hmm. And again, this isn't something folks in the teachers union will ever acknowledge or offer up. When we went down this path to go allocate massive new funding for teacher pay, it was in response to one issue and one issue only. It was an issue that was brought up to me from day one when I got elected, which was the teacher shortage. So the starting teacher pay was designed to address that one issue that everyone at the time agreed was the biggest issue in the profession. So we allocated, I think, 80% of that first year's funding to increase starting teacher pay to draw more people into the profession, which was what that money was designed to do. But in acknowledgement, out of respect for veteran teachers, we also allocated $200 million that first year to increase veteran teacher pay. So there is no veteran teacher making less than or equal to a starting teacher's salary.
So a bill that has started working its way through legislature, and frankly, this year so far, it's been pretty slow. Not a lot of bills have worked their way through committees at this point. The legislature, for some reason, is moving a little bit slower than they typically would. But one bill, and this has received some attention already from the press, and I'm sure we'll hear more about it as session goes on. It's Senate Bill 620, and Janice Gilley discusses Senate Bill 620 and the impacts that it could potentially have on businesses and local government.
A bill that you all might find interesting to look at is Senate Bill 620. It's not Senator Broxson's bill, but it is a business bill. It's a bill that basically says that if a county or a city or any municipality through their charter or through ordinance creates a situation in which a business is 15% financially damaged, that they can then pursue damages from that entity. So it's going to be, those of you that may be aware of private business, or private property rights, you may be familiar with the Burt-Harris Act. Mm-hmm. And with the Burt-Harris Act, that's where you have to have real property associated with the action. Well, in this, you don't have to have real property as part of the cause of action. A business can actually make this.
So an issue that is always of importance to us in Northwest Florida, because we are in an area that is prone to have storms, is homeowners insurance, property insurance. And one of the questions that was raised during the luncheon was, what is the legislature going to do about homeowners insurance, property insurance? Because we are seeing impacts from the storms that we've had here in Northwest Florida and other parts of the state that have had an impact on our rates, insurance rates. So Representative Alex Andrade discussed that and kind of the challenge that they have as legislators. This is really an interesting perspective that he brought in terms of how they have to weigh both sides of an issue and how lobbying works and that sort of thing. So Representative Andrade provides an interesting answer on this question about insurance.
Florida's got a couple of unique things that go against it right now. First, while we have 8% of all homeowners insurance, property insurance damage cases in the United States, we have over 80% of all property insurance litigation in the country. If you don't think our market is unhealthy, like if you don't think that you would diagnose that as an at-risk, a critical health concern for that market, we're not on the same planet. So last year, we did take a first crack at trying to bring our property insurance market back into the realm of reality and match it closer to other states. But we have an interesting dynamic in the state of Florida based on our advocacy model, plus we have a very, very part-time legislature. So we're a part-time legislature. You don't want us there in Tallahassee any longer than 60 days a year changing our laws or fiddling with our budget. But one of the drawbacks of that is that we're not a full-time legislature. We don't develop a deep level of expertise on everything that comes under the jurisdiction of a state. So every single year, we have two very well-funded lobbies that come to Tallahassee on opposite sides of this issue. And it's very tough for legislators who are there for 60 days and then go home back to whatever business they run or whatever they do when they come home to actually understand what the truth is, to come up and decide what's right. I mean, so what I constantly remind folks is I don't care if one side or the other is supporting my proposal or not. The only person I care about is when I go knock on those 10,000 doors to go get reelected, I have the ability to explain exactly why I believe what I did, the vote I took, was the correct vote. So, last year we took a crack at this property insurance issue. One of those components was, limiting the time span on the replacement value for a roof. In Florida, our roofs take a beating. We also have severe weather events in Florida. If you're not familiar with Hurricane Sally or Hurricane Michael or Hurricane Andrew, I'll give you an earful after this panel. But modeling our property insurance market, the policies that we have in place after other states that have seen improvement, is the best way for us all to identify a guidepost that we can actually all confirm, right? Because we have this wealth, this deluge of information from all sides, and we are getting manipulated, right? And no side's wrong. That's the responsibility of both advocates on both sides to go sell us on their position. The trick is we got to figure out what's right.
And one final bill that I'll mention that Janice Gilley from Senator Broxson's office talked about is a bill that will allow, I think right now it's just businesses, but it may eventually be available to all of us, but digital license plates. And this is something that, it's kind of the future of the way we do things, but it potentially would allow truckers and businesses with, a fleet to use these digital license plates instead of your typical license plates where you have to go down to the tax collector's office or do it online. It sounds like it's kind of an interesting concept. So let's hear from Janice on that bill.
A bill that you all might find interesting as business owners, if you happen to have a fleet of vehicles, we've got a piece of legislation related to digital license plates. And what's really neat about these license plates, so you don't have to manage or have transponders, you don't have to manage fees and tolls, and you don't have to manage apps for parking. Once you have these digital license plate, they already have the ability to connect for the connectivity. So it's another extension of the Internet of Things. So we use the connectivity that's already there. The other thing it can do, it can display if the vehicle's been stolen. It can say stolen vehicle on the digital plate. It can also say amber. It can notify people writing that it's an amber alert or a silver alert. So there are a lot of benefits to this particular license plate. There are several states that currently already have it. And the other thing that I think might be cool, and I did look, and I don't think Scott Lunsford's here, but you don't have to visit the tax collector's office to get a license plate every year. So it literally downloads when you want to renew. So you don't have to go make that visit, and you also don't have to worry about late fees, because when you find out it's fixing to expire, you can hurry up and download it. So there are some really cool things. I think this is a future thing, but it's also, like I said, in several states it's already out there.
So that'll wrap up the comments from the participants in our legislative luncheon. Again, we had Representative Michelle Salzman, Representative Alex Andrade, and Janice Gilley representing State Senator Doug Broxson, who was not able to be in attendance. But we are looking forward to, it should be an interesting session. Again, the only things that they have to do are the budget and redistricting. I mentioned earlier, not a lot of bills have been filed and moving through the process at this point, but we at the Chamber are going to stay on top of this, and we're still looking potentially at some workforce development bills. There'll be some sales tax holidays that Representative Andrade mentioned. some education bills that we look to be filed here in the coming weeks that we'll be interested in as well. So a lot will still be happening. We'll have to keep an eye on it and keep you posted. But, that's what we're here for at the Chamber. And again, thank you for listening. Thank you for your support of the business community. And we will catch you next time on the Chamber Connection.